Cool. Okay, I'm going to test that one. Oh, hello. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I hope this internet connection is going to be all right. But hi, thank you so much for joining today. And this is Duncan from Kiln. Thank you so much for joining us today. And this
My pleasure.
We're at Kiln right now. So there's actually, you want to say hi? We have people in the background and people still working. So, oh, hi, Trip. Thank you so much for joining. So, yeah, I'm actually really quite excited because so I got a chance to look at some of you guys' past works, and Kiln is an award-winning, and I want to emphasize the award-winning part because I went through your work and I was like, holy crap, so this is what it takes to win an award or multiple awards. You have like amazing, beautiful interactives, and I wanted to talk to you about that and also about what you're currently working on. So, yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and anybody else in the room that you want to, if Robin wants to come over, or do you want to join us?
That's the best hair in the room over there. There it is.
I can't see where the camera is.
Hello,
I'm Robin.
That's
I'm
the best brain and the best hair. There's a correlation, not necessarily a causation. So Kiln, Robin and I set Kiln up about, 4 or 5 years ago?
Just bring a chair over.
I was working.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And then there were 3.
Okay, I've got a chair. Like I'm in the middle.
Oh, NGF 2017. Thank you for following. Look at that cute caption.
That's very
Okay. You have brought us a follower. Yeah. Anyways. Robin and Duncan and Kiln.
Yeah. When was it? 2012?
2012. And we'd worked together before, and we wanted to work together again, but we weren't quite sure how to.
Okay.
And Duncan rented a house in Cornwall for a week.
Oh yeah, that's
So
right.
I went down to Cornwall for a few days, and we spent a couple of days sort of sitting up late thinking about how we could work together. And
making a map.
That's right. And Duncan had this idea for making a map showing, because at the time he was working on climate change as an environment journalist, and he had this idea for making a map showing all kinds of stats about carbon emissions.
Can you still pull it up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
carbonmap.org.
Okay, hold on.
It's not quite the original. This is the
there we go.
2015 remix, I think. It's
Wait,
currently out
where's
there.
our? Oh, there we go. So here you go. The 2015 remix.
Yeah, so we remixed it with new data and a responsive design a few years later. I still got the original version on my laptop. But,
So this was the world's, probably, we think this was the first sort of interactive animated cartogram map. So you can go whoop, and squish the countries to reflect the data. This is showing CO2, but the reason we thought of this treatment originally was this idea that the CO2 kind of moves around the world, or the carbon atoms move around the world. So that's where they come out of the ground as in the form of fossil fuels. That's where they get burned, and then that's where the end goods and services that result from that burning get consumed. So you can sort of see China, for example, getting a bit bigger for emissions and smaller for consumption because it exports a lot of the stuff that it makes. And then you can click historical. You get the UK is massive, cradle of the Industrial Revolution. And then compare that to, say, people at risk and where the poverty is. And so you get this quite, probably looks much less good on the screencast, but the animation is quite smooth. So it gives it quite a sort of tactile way to explore the data.
Yeah.
But then the other thing that was quite specific about this this project, and which ended up being really influential in the stuff we did later, was this idea of a voiceover. And I think you had that idea right back in the Cornwall house.
it took me a few weeks to persuade Duncan this was a good idea, but he came around to it very quickly.
So this is the idea that very often with a visualization, if you want to actually explain something to someone, then you can't just give them a bunch of buttons to press. You want to guide them through the different views and explain why they're interested. So one way to do that is to have a next, a scroll-based mechanism where you click next, you see one view, read a bit,
or steppers, or
exactly a stepper. And this was our sort of alternative way that we ended up doing a lot of, which we called Talkie. And you press play.
We're used to seeing the world like this. Though if countries are resized to represent their true area, it actually looks more like this. But area is only one way of looking at the world. This site gives some others, such as where the people are and where the money is. Mainly though, this site is about climate change. Browse the responsibility maps to see how
I think make this straight line sort of round in a circle.
So whose voice is that? I was
That's
actually.
me. So technically, this is relatively simple. What it's doing is playing a audio file and synchronizing time codes in the audio file with effectively pressing buttons on your behalf.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. So I didn't look at the carbon map, but I was taking a look at another one that I think you did. That was I think bank loans and.
That was our second project.
Yeah, that was great, and it was a very similar with the same world map, but with like hex pins instead.
That was that was.
Okay. Is that a different? And you also had the voiceover. I think a lot of your projects have that voiceover introducing the project, and then I was wondering exactly what you were saying about like the voiceover tying to the animations, and then how are you triggering that and all of that.
Yeah, so I mean, the basic principle is synchronize JavaScript events with time codes, and we've done that not just with audio but also with video.
So technically, you just play the audio and you listen for time change events, and then when the time changes, you do something. It's actually really fiddly to get everything choreographed, and we pulled the code out into an open source library after a couple of years, which is called Talkie, which is on our GitHub. Kiln/Talkie. TALKIE.
It's a little bit.
So we've used this in all of our projects, and I think one other person has used it once. So it's not a very active open source project, but we've used it a lot.
And we've never done a very good job of documenting it and stuff. But that can be used for not just for maps, but for so for kind of charts. So here's an example of a sort of Hans Rosling style plot.
To explore the digital divide, let's create a plot of the number of mobile and fixed internet subscriptions against the average speed of those subscriptions.
And
now,
so you can see you
roll by
can jump around,
yes,
just as if you were watching a video, but the whole thing is still interactive. And so the basic principle is to try and avoid forcing you to choose between making an explorer and making a sort of narrative explainer, which people generally do like as a video and then with an interactive load of buttons. And the idea with this is you shouldn't need to choose, you should be able to make it interactive and then have it explain itself.
Yeah, so this is amazing because, and then I just want to say, if you guys have any questions, please ask at any given time. But yeah, I think this is really amazing because I think I just started kind of like this journey into figuring out how to tell, like, because your whole studio was about data visualization and storytelling, and now you have Flourish, which is like the platform for doing all of that. But I just kind of, maybe like a year ago, started trying to figure out how to do the storytelling thing, and then I realized, like you said, that there's the interactive that's important, but then also like how do you guide the people through how to use that interactive? And so I did the storytelling. I did like a few like steppers and like telling the stories in like a I guess narrative format. And then when I saw this today earlier, I was like, oh, this is so brilliant. But I don't have as nice of a voice as you do, Duncan. So.
I don't know about that. Everyone sounds different recorded. Try speaking deeply on a microphone.
Okay, I'll try that next.
So
I like the ones that aren't Duncan's voice.
Me too.
It seems more sort of professional somehow to have.
It does, but there are some that. So quite often, we would make voiceover. So we did this project with UCL, which is a big shipping map, and I generally wrote the scripts for these things. So, Robin's background is in tech and maths, and mine's in journalism. And so I would be doing the sort of journalistic layer over the top. And very often I would record it just to show them that it worked, and then encourage them to re-record it. But this was an example of...
At any given moment, tens of thousands of giant cargo ships are moving around the world's oceans.
Actually, no.
These ships, some of which are more than a quarter...
So this is still your voice.
So that's still me. But if I ever demo this, I always feel a bit embarrassed that it's me, because I'm giving the talk and then coming out of the thing as well.
I wonder maybe if
Aviation
it's
is a good one.
Aviation, that's the best voice. That's a friend of mine who used to be an actor. Check out this voice.
Here's an extraordinary fact. Right now, as you watch this, 500,000 human beings are in the sky. Many of them high above the clouds.
The great thing is he sounds just like a pilot, which is just what you want from this program.
I think it's also you guys' British accents. It makes you sound super sophisticated and educated and learned.
We've got hundreds of years of imperial determination to tell us what's going on.
Of the lower stratosphere. Here's where they are at this moment, aboard the thousands of planes that crisscross the world
So when we
simultaneously.
first made this project, let's actually just pause at that moment. When we first made this project, it was actually drawing on live data. So it took a
So
live...
that timestamp would have been right now. We lost access to the live feed service. It's a snapshot from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So what we were trying to do here was do a few different things. So one was basically show the last 24 hours so that you could see movement through time rather than just a live feed, but basically a live playback of the last 24 hours. But then we tried to bake that into something that felt more like an interactive documentary. And the idea with that is that because it was live data, but the script was pre-recorded, it would say, here's where they are right now at this moment, and that would actually be where they were right now at that moment. So although the voice would always be the same, what you're actually looking at would be live. So it's kind of a live interactive documentary.
We have a question from the floor that says, where did we get the flight tracking data from? We got it from a company called ShirleyChats, who let us have free access to their feed as long as we credited them. They're not very friendly credited, are they? That's where they took the access.
No, they were really helpful. So Flight Stats, it's the same company that if you Google a flight number, and it will tell you, flight number DA6 or whatever is 2 hours late. It's the same company that provides, it's the same data set as that, basically. They have live takeoff and landing feeds for every airport in the world. So what we were working with here wasn't, unlike the ship map, this isn't actually
but it's
positional
really,
information.
really live. I mean, this data, there'd be updates multiple times a second. So the flight was delayed by 5 minutes, then we'd get an update, or when a flight took off, we'd get an update. So it was a real live data feed that was updating absolutely continually. It wasn't just sort of updating once a day or something.
Oh my god.
So I mean, it's not tracking the positions of the planes in the sky, but it's tracking in real time the takeoff and landing times and the schedule.
That's so amazing. Wait, what's the backend for this like? Like, do you, because that means that you have to hit an API like every few minutes, or?
We were hitting it constantly. So we've got a database that. So the way the API for this worked at the time, and it may be different now, is that it would just send you a stream of updates. So it would say, delete this record or edit this record and change this value to this. So it was like a massive database of all the flights, and then there'd be just a continual stream of updates to the database. So we had a copy of the database, and we were just continually applying the stream of updates as it came in. And then every 15 minutes, we would take a snapshot from the database and generate the data files that we need to do this animation.
And it was actually more complicated than that. I mean, Robin did all of this, as I could take no credit for it.
Weeks.
But one of the reasons it was so complicated is that every airport is in a different time zone. And so there were local time, and then it was a massive job just to create the output data, which we could just overlay on the map, because we were saying it was going from point A to point B, but they were in different time zones. Those time zones change at different times of year.
Oh my god!
For daylight saving, etc. So it was pretty complicated.
It reminds me of this one talk by Rachel Binks. She did one at OpenBiz last year, and it was about building visualizations for. She worked at JPL, so for basically rocket scientists, and she was talking about how complicated it was to even get like a calendar working for all the different planets, because that matters to them, right? Like time working for like different planets so that they can track like when a mission was launched and all of that. We have a few more questions. So SC000P458 asks, are they an offshoot of FlightAware?
Not that I am aware of. I think they're just a standalone company. It's quite a big company, and they provide this data, as I said before, to Google and everyone. But I think it's flightstats.com if you want to check them out. What was the other question?
And then the second one is, can you talk about how you thread the needle between showing all the data that is relevant to the story and not distracting the user with more than they can process? That's a really great one.
In a way, the whole point of this thing is to distract the user with more than they can process, because this sort of landing page is supposed to just make you think, wow, that's a lot of planes, basically is the point of this. I mean, it can be understood because you can sort of see a global view of it like that, and you can see some patterns in it and so on. But this is pretty much all the data that we. I mean, this isn't literally all the data that we had, obviously, but this is a reasonable sort of.
That's basically showing the local time.
Yeah, and this is cool actually. If you look at, I'll just point with the cursor. So basically most airports are shut in the small hours. So you can see that America and Europe are now really busy. Asia's gone to sleep. Oh well, look, we're still playing the talkie silently. But if we fly that again, then you basically see this dark period, which is currently about here, moving through. So Europe is currently empty, but everywhere else is sending flights to land when the airport's open, which happens at about 5 in the morning. So Paris and London open now, everyone's coming in, and suddenly it's like a sort of fireworks strike. Just as America's gone to sleep in the East Coast, planes start coming over from the West Coast, ready to land there at 5 in the morning.
Oh, all the red eyes.
Yeah. So, I mean, so to go back to the question, like in a way, the whole point of this visualization and, the first part of the script for this project is, here's an extraordinary fact. At any given moment, there are tens of thousands of people in the sky. And so what we're really trying to show here is just the total movement. And the main point we're trying to articulate is not plane X went from A to B, it's that there's this incredible global dance that you can only see at the aggregate level. But in a way, the stuff we were talking about before about talkie is very much about this. The idea is you make an explainer that can show anything, but then you use talkie to just reveal certain bits at certain times. So if you take something like the ship map that we briefly showed before, I mean, this is a very rich data set, and there's all sorts of different ways to cut it. So this lets you do stuff like show the kind of all the plotted positions. That's the thing which is up on the wall there, broken out maybe by ship type. But if you try to tell the user in one go, there are all these different views, so you show everything at once, and here are the buttons, and here's how to click them. You turn the ports on and off. There's almost too much to take in. Whereas from a user interface perspective, if when they load the page, there's just one button, and that is play, and they click play, then you can just say, well, we've got a couple of minutes, and over that period, we can reveal the features of the app and show what's interesting about the data. So if you sort of jump to this is a kind of scrubber as well, if you jump to different points in this talkie, it will turn on different views, take you to different parts of the world. It will highlight the Panama Canal. This is highlighting the container ships, the yellow ones around China. But because you're gradually introducing more features and concepts, then you're not asking the user to take too much in at once.
And I love the partnership of like, you said like, Duncan, you're a journalist, or that's where you come from, and you come from a technical perspective, and I think just kind of that like that partnership is really, really amazing because like
it's worked really well for us. Yeah, we've done things. I think something like this. I think could only really be done with that kind of hardware because it's a combination of moderately crunchy technology with kind of storytelling, which is it's the kind of thing that we've sort of been trying to do since we started doing it. But I think we've slowly got better over them. We're doing something slightly different now.
Yeah, we've blurred the boundaries quite a lot because I do quite a lot of coding now. They're not in his league, and Robin's always actually chipped in a lot on the storytelling. So it's quite blurry these days.
Wait, can you finish the story about 2012, a map, a cabin, was it?
So that was, so we made the carbon map, and we didn't have any customer for that, it was just an idea. But then we saw that the World Bank were running a competition. So we thought, okay, that gives us a deadline to finish something and publish it. So we published it, and then...
So this was the beginning of our long history of losing competitions.
Yeah, true. We didn't win this one. And we published it, and that was all fine and dandy. We quickly put up a website for Kiln just so that we had a URL for the entry form. And we didn't win the competition, but we showed it to a couple of people at The Guardian, where I was working at the time.
I see.
And Simon Rogers, who then went to Twitter and then to Google.
We worked with him.
Right, so Simon used to be at The Guardian running the data blog, and he saw it and was like, whoa, this is cool, can we stick it up on The Guardian? And we said, yeah, that's fine. We hadn't done it commercially or anything, so it got published on The Guardian. It immediately got a lot of interest, and then that was kind of the point where we realised, oh, actually, there's probably some kind of business in this. And so at that point, it was a side project. We both had other jobs, and then gradually over the next year or two, we sort of gradually dialed down the other stuff and ended up just doing this.
It's amazing. And then, oh, sorry, you were going to say?
No, I was just going to say I spotted a question.
So there's a question from a technical standpoint. How much do you have to compromise in compiling to make sure the visualizations don't end up hogging way too much resources? Because these seems huge. It's super interesting. Yeah, my laptop is like, it's like, I don't think it's been so verbally complaining for a while. Like, it's really loud right now. I'm like half paranoid that it's gonna freeze. Like, I'm just really glad that the feed is still going. Knock on wood.
This one's running on the GPU, which seems to make the fan spin up harder than just running the CPU. Because it's although it's 2D, it's using WebGL to animate this number of dots smoothly.
That makes sense.
The answer is that we always just push it as far as we can. So with the in-flight, for example, Duncan was really keen to have some sort of there was some special effect that made the little dots glow, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, that's right.
That looked really cool, but it just we couldn't get the thing working reliably on ordinary computers with that effect on, so we had to turn it off in the end. I think with a lot of these things, it's just been a question of how far can we push it with the available hardware and browser support, and kind of at some point you have to say, okay, we've gone too far, we have to dial it back a bit. Because it's
but also there's sometimes
too slow using too many voices. You can do things in a really expensive way quickly, and there's just a question of, is it worth the extra work to do it more efficiently? So for example, in the ship map and in this map, first we just encoded all the data as CSVs, which was the straightforward thing to do. And the resulting data file was like 20 megs or something. And in this case I think it was 25 megs, if I remember right. And that obviously wasn't okay, but actually because all we wanted was a start latitude and longitude, and because Robin's got a background in computer science, he suggested, well, why don't we create a binary encoded file where we can control each byte in the file, and that gives you the absolute maximum squash. So a position is 4 bytes, 2 bytes for the latitude and 2 bytes for the longitude, which is about the minimum you can get away with at reasonable resolution. So that got this down, in this case, to about 3 megs, which is what we thought was the maximum at that time, 2014, sorry. No, it's January 2014. We thought that was okay to make people download 3 megs. I think now we think
we wouldn't even blink at that.
No,
But especially on mobiles back then, on 2G, 3G.
that makes sense. Yeah. I wouldn't even suggest. Can you look up this on mobile? Does
Yeah.
it work?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But I'll tell you what works better because of the WebGL. Look at shipmap.org.
Okay, I'm gonna go on my phone right now. Wait, while I find it on my phone, would
But if
you?
you're going to look at the ship map on a 4G connection, make sure you've got a good data plan because then we see your data.
Let me tell you. Yesterday, I went and got a 12 gig SIM from the airport, so I have 12 gigs for the next 10 days. I'm covered.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
you
you
say
get through
that.
that in half an hour.
If you play all,
Oh no.
if you play all 45 minutes of shipping data, you'll get through 1 gig. So,
Okay, I will.
but you'll be
play,
okay
like-
for 10 minutes.
Okay. Wait, hold on. What was the car? Wait.
Shipmap.org.
Shipmap. Okay, while I'm doing that, can you tell us the story behind the name Kiln? Because I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so that was the originals. It's a bit of a retrospective thing.
So also it's a combination of a pretentious idea and a silly joke. That's the nice combination.
Yeah, exactly. So the original thinking was just something creative, like creative furnace, that kind of stream of thought. And then Kiln had a particular thing around data, because the idea being that data is everywhere, and we're surrounded by it, but it's a bit useless until you kind of shape it, glaze it, bake it in some way. And so kind of data being clay is the kind of conceptual thing, although that was thought of afterwards, because we don't work. But then we came
But
to
also,
the through
naming
URL.
in the 21st century, of course, is all based on domain name availability. And so we had to find a name that had a good domain name available. And for Kiln, although it's now Kiln.digital, in the good old days it was Kiln.it. And I think that was the thing that really swung it, because Kiln.it sort of sounds like killing it, which is a nice...
I love it. It's so great.
But unfortunately, on Google, there's no way to say that your .it domain is being used generically rather than for Italy. So we changed it because we realised that we were the best rated data viz for agency for SEO in Italy and hopeless everywhere else.
Let me just say, RJ, one of my friends, RJ, he got a .af domain, so I think he got an interesting .af, and he was like, oh, I want to get a cool .af, and I was like, oh, that's really great. That's a great domain. Okay, there's quite a few more questions. So, oh wait, no.
That's a good question. Tabs or spaces? So we've
Wait, where is that? Oh, sometimes, okay.
So the answer is that our official company code style uses tabs, which is Duncan's preference. So this is we came up with a code style based on some sort of compromise between our own personal preferences at some point years ago, and I compromised on the tabs in order to get Duncan to concede something more important. I forget what it was. And
does mean we're rather out of sync with the rest of the JavaScript world.
I have preferences. They're not tabs.
I was going to say Bay Area D3 codes is firmly 2 spaces.
Is it really? I haven't noticed. Oh, actually.
Everyone just does the same as my boss does, don't they?
No, mine's more from just my previous companies and the styles that we had. So, but it could possibly just most people probably from
Hey, look, check this out. I'm going to show you something just before we move on because I haven't seen this for ages.
Okay.
So this is 100 years of commercial aviation.
Wait, do you want the?
That's what I don't say.
Okay. Oh wow!
And then each of these years gives you a. Well, in fact, you can highlight stuff.
in a way, this was the hardest part of the project, wasn't it?
Well, I've lost my
I think
cursor.
you go that way.
Ah, there we go. So the idea of this was that it was like playing a harp, and so that as you move around, it loads first a low res and then a high res.
I actually love the low
Finding
res.
100 relevant archive photographs was really the hardest part of this project.
Took ages.
But you must have had a lot of fun with this.
Oh, yeah, and we now know a great deal about the history of aviation. Like, for example, the fact that the first ever in-flight movie was in 1925.
Wow.
That had no sound, you could only hear the engine clattering away.
And apparently you only fit like 6 people.
Yeah, in stand-on wicker chairs.
That does not look safe. Wait, can I just say, okay, so MF Fish says, I'm really new to data visualization, but this has really opened my eyes to some incredible possibilities. Let me just say, I've been doing data visualization for a hot minute, and I still think this has seriously opened up my eyes to some incredible possibilities. I'm so glad I'm here. Thank you so much for responding. And then also, NGF 2017, what's your personal extraordinary fact that you haven't had a chance to make a data viz for yet?
Ooh, interesting one.
Extraordinary fact, like a personal fact to make, a more like a quantified self kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, my favourite fact was used to be, I don't know whether this is still true with all the changes to the London Underground network, but it used to be the fact that St John's Wood is the only London Underground station that doesn't have any letters in common with the word mackerel.
Wait,
Never
what?
how you can visualise that.
Okay.
I don't know. It's true though.
Do you know the story about why we stand on the right for escalators?
No.
So you know, Brits drive on the left, but when you're in an escalator, you have to stand on the right to let people walk on the left.
Do you also walk on the right-hand side?
No. So everything is on the
You
left.
walk on the
So
left-hand
this
side.
is something
Okay.
particular to escalators. And the reason this is the first ever escalator was in Earl's Court Station.
Okay.
And it was so unfamiliar and scary to the crowd that no one dared go on it. So the way that they did this was they made it such they had a diagonal exit so that you could walk off on your most comfortable foot, which is your right foot for most people.
Okay.
And then what they did, they employed a one-legged man with a wooden leg to go up and down all day to make people feel safer.
That doesn't think we stand on the right,
No,
though.
that's the first bit, the leg.
Okay.
But in order to calm everyone's nerves, they had a one-legged man. Anyway.
Okay. Duncan said before that they start with an extraordinary fact when they're making a database, so I was wondering if there was something they personally found compelling. I see.
God, there's so many I wouldn't know where to start, but it is true that we often try and we're doing a big story. So like this story here, for example, is basically the history of 100 years of aviation. And it's a multi-chapter thing, but in order to, where do you even start telling a story that big? And so the way we did it was to start with the overview, which is like, where are we right now before going back in history?
Mm-hmm.
And then say, within that overview, what's the most striking, remarkable thing? And we thought, actually, the fact that there are 500,000 people in the air right now, when you stop and think about, imagine all their little legs hanging down, just floating around and stuff, it's kind of amazing. And so I do think it's good practice for the storytelling stuff to try and think what is the most sort of striking individual factoid that you can get out of the whole story.
That's
that's
really
often an interesting entry point.
Yeah, that's a really great advice. I'm gonna keep that in mind. Thank you. I don't know what mine is right now. No idea.
You have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah. My most uncommonly known fact about myself that I don't think I can really make a vis for is that as a child I learned how to ride a unicycle.
Really?
So between the ages of 6 and 10, I was really great. I mean, like not circus level great, but that was my preferred mode of transportation.
Right. Can you still do it then?
I mean, I haven't tried in like decade and a half because I just don't have access to a unicycle. But I'm hoping it's kind of like riding a bicycle that you just pick it back up. But I don't know. I feel like I should be able to. Yeah.
So I feel a
Crowdfunding
crowdfunding project.
Yeah, and then wait. So I'm supposed to do this really quickly on my phone. Okay, so it loaded beautifully.
Is it working?
Hit play,
The dots
hit play.
moving around.
And I feel like there's some sort of better way to
At
do
any given
this.
moment, tens of
Where-
thousands of giant cargo ships are
Wow.
moving around the world's oceans. These ships, some of which are more than a quarter of a mile long, are the heavy lifters of the global economy, shifting everything from metal ores and compressed gas to fresh fruit and plastic toys. This interactive map shows the movements of the world's commercial shipping fleet in 2012,
This is
based on
amazing.
hundreds of millions of
Yeah.
individually recorded
I feel like this officially means I cannot use mobile sucks at visualizations as an excuse anymore. So like, yeah. Wow, I don't know where to go from here. This is
How about
so
Flourish?
cool. Yes. Yeah.
So this is all we do these days. We've stopped doing bespoke work in order to do this thing. And the basic principle of this is
It's like a red box, man. It's that in the Ep8 that they can see that little bit in a minute.
Oh, no. So that one is like, you know how every time somebody followed, there was a cute little cactus?
That's where that goes.
Yeah, that's where that goes. Yeah.
So Flourish is an attempt to make a platform that lets people do the kind of stuff we've been doing for years, really quickly, really efficiently, and without any coding skills. But it's also a way for developers to turn one-off things into reusable things. So it looks like this. Currently, you can join up for the waiting list here, and we're going to invite everyone from the waiting list in the next 2 months, at which point we will have some kind of self-sign-up thing. But a little preview. Oh, look, I'm not on my computer, and I don't know my login.
Okay, so hold on. I was gonna ask you about this before we started the stream because I only got the developer thing, but then also I want to thank you guys again because like Duncan has been really busy like the whole day. Like I couldn't really catch him much because he's been so busy, and then I forgot about asking you to like pull up a.
Hey, it's okay. We're going to find it.
Meanwhile, I did.
I've got a really unfriendly password. Try and log in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to log in. Right. I would say read it out.
I can read it out, but then everyone will know the password.
Here, how about I hold this up? Here. I'll hold this up like
The
this.
camera.
3 Y. So this is what happens. Robin makes me have decent passwords these days. It used to be good when I just had the word
Oh,
password.
is this with like a password manager?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay, I'm in.
Never!
Certainly not right now. Okay, so this is Flourish, and you start with your project dashboard. The idea is it's a bit like Google Docs, so it's a really simple to use way to produce content on a cloud-hosted app. But unlike Google Docs, rather than making spreadsheets and documents, you're making high-end visualizations. So a visualization in Flourish is basically a template plus your data plus some settings. And the template can be anything. So the idea is that any data viz coder who knows how to make a one-off viz can make a Flourish template. They just need to understand the overall architecture and download the Flourish SDK. The Flourish SDK is in NPM, and you can use any other NPM modules very straightforwardly. So you could use D3, you could use whatever, Leaflet, whatever you like. And then once you're happy with your template, you upload it to Flourish, and an end user such as me logged in here can come and click on the template, and it will load with some sample data. So there's the data below. Here's the column selection, so which columns are being used. Here are all the settings. So I might say, I want my lines to be, so this is, in this one I'm using D3 behind the scenes, so it's just revealing D3 settings. Do I want to show the data points or not? How big should they be? And obviously as I change them here, they will be immediately reflected there. Probably don't want them that big. So you can make quite cool stuff quite quickly. But this is the simplest possible template, so this is just a line chart. Whereas a really fancy template might be something like this. So this
The simplest possible template is my favourite template. It just draws a circle and you can't edit it at all.
Oh yeah, that's not one that many other people have used. So this is
the first template they ever made for Flourish.
So this is a.
First made it possible to make templates. So it's a very special one.
So this one's much cooler. This is a WebGL time map template. So this could be used for say web analytics or anything like that. And you can play through time, and you can color and size the. So you see the data here. There's just latitude and longitude, a label, optionally, and timestamp. And then optionally, you can have a bunch of other things such as should they be scaled by something? Should they be colored by a category? So you could come in here with, say, web analytics data, and you could shade them according to the device type, you could size them according to the number of visits, and you could just press play and see how your traffic moves around, in this case the UK. But because this is, so this was made by a very talented web developer called Hugh Kennedy, who we're working with, and the whole idea of Flush is that we don't have to make all the templates in-house, we can either commission some from other people, or just third parties can make them as well. But this one is really fun, because you can do stuff like play around with, I can't remember if we still reveal the setting for the sea level. You can basically sync the UK. It's kind of fun. Here's the ocean. Oh, we've turned that off. So now it's
Why?
all, well, I guess because we can hide the ocean.
That's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, we could make the ocean
This is on the terrain.
run red.
That's a little bit morbid.
Wow. Really.
Yeah,
Blood?
it's a bit weird.
I like how the horizon kind of like fades. There's like a blur going on.
That's nice, isn't it? Yeah, that's the fog. You can use
Anyway, so that's
Is that now all the fog?
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
very
You
foggy.
zoom out, you can see the fog really.
yeah. Maybe we should get rid of the fog.
Oh, you literally do have a fog
Yeah,
density.
he's not joking. And then, so that's a new template we just added. This was the first one we ever made, which was originally a one-off project for Google News Lab. And then that was a kind of perfect use case for Flourish. We made them a globe showing migration searches, who wants to move where based on what they're searching for. And looks like Brexit's been...
Hey, Robert, thank you for joining. Just, we're laughing at Robert's comment that says, looks like Brexit to me. Oh, no.
So this one was a one-off project, and Google News Lab commissioned us to make it. It was published once, and then that was it. And that's the sort of sad reality of most data viz projects at the moment, is you put all this work into them, and then they get published once. Even if they get a decent audience, it's a waste of all that wonderful code.
It's one of like giant spiders from space taking over the earth.
So this is now
It's missing a giant body.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
So this is now a reusable thing. So Google can make as many as they want, showing the same story, but with updated data. But anyone else can now use it with their own data. And you can see the data source here is just a spreadsheet with a source and a destination column. Oh, that was, yeah, Dan went home sick today, but that was his really cool idea of having a little mini preview.
Yeah,
And it's kind of cool because if you make a change
update
here,
it should. Is that
so if we're looking at 2014, so if we change this, so this was in 2014, and we make a really big number, then we should.
Because they're meant to be the same source of
Oh yeah, actually, boring. Okay, what if I could get to the right point and edit one of these?
Well, you can just change
Oh,
the
it's
page
quite
out.
a. We're going to have to scroll up and down, and Shirley's scrolling is upside down, which is why.
Oh, yeah. It annoys many people.
Is that maybe it's
Okay, here we go. So if I change this to 2,
upside down scrolling as well. Maybe data viz developers have it. Upside down scrolling.
Did it go?
Did something change? Something
Did
definitely
something
changed. Try making it 200.
Trying to import. Oh, I'm in the wrong area still. I'm gonna have to do more of this crazy backward scrolling.
What are you doing wrong?
Okay, I'm just going to show some input. Here we go. Okay, this one's gonna.
You're in 2012.
Oh no! This is the worst demo ever. Here we go. This one's gonna work.
Yes! I'll bet most people missed that just now.
So basically, the two things that we were always trying to do in our book was do cool, interesting interactives, and then tell a story with them. And Flourish is designed to do the same thing. So you can have an unlimited range of templates, which can be anything. And then the other part of Flourish, so this is the visualization, and the other part is the story editor. So, yeah, you're pointing here.
Can we click on this?
So let's click on that. So here's the visualization we just made. And here it is in the story editor. And if we wanted to start, so currently it only supports steppers.
Okay.
But kind of behind the scenes, we've already built in timecode support. We just haven't added an interface for
Mm-hmm.
uploading an audio file and attaching it. But that's something we will do at some point. So the idea with this is that as you manipulate it as an end user, so let's say we click on imports, we go to 2013, you're basically exploring and interacting.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can just capture that state, and in fact it's auto-saved already. So if you wanted to start with that view, with a world like that, maybe you want to annotate that with some text. And then we want to duplicate that.
Where did the text go?
At the top, and then I duplicated it.
Oh.
So I've got a new slide, and let's say we want to change to exports.
I see.
Even though I've got that as our new, we could say, and then we could duplicate it again and do something a bit more interesting. Let's say actually we want to compare that to UK. And for some reason, have you've disabled mouse? Oh no, there it is, it's just backwards. So if I did that, say, and then let's say we want to look at this as a finished thing rather than in the editor. So here's our full page story. We click next, we get to there, we click next again, it's going to animate around.
Wow.
So you can see in a few seconds we did something that if you were trying to code this from scratch, would have taken weeks, and even to make the globe and make the navigability on the globe would be an amount of work that would be very hard to justify as one project.
Mm-hmm.
And if you did, it wouldn't be reused with that many people. So now anyone can come in, throw the data into the globe, and tell a story to the globe. But what's cool about Flourish Stories is you can not only do that, you could then say, let's put in some completely other visualization, some completely different visualization.
A different template.
Yeah, so maybe we want to start by saying,
Oh, wow.
we could just have a slide. So we could start with Michael's story. Oh, right next to it. And let's stick this at the beginning. So this is just like PowerPoint, you can drag it around. Let's get rid of this. Let's make this red.
Too much PowerPoint with blue background.
It is, yeah, let's make it red to go with our crazy ocean scene this made. And then you could put a background image or video behind that. And then we're going to go through and it will load our globe and do whatever animations like that. But then let's say we want to have let's give this a name. Let's call this Shirley Story. You got an E there? Is that right?
Yeah.
So let's leave that in our project. We can go back and create a new visualization with a different template. Like let's say this one's quite fun. So this is a sort of bump chart with pictures and animation between states. And we might want to customize that. Let's say we want to change the colors and we want to change the line style so that it's kind of overflowing curve or something. And we save that as a horse race. Then we can go back into our story and just add a new slide and put in viz. Now obviously these two templates are unrelated, so you're not going to get an animation between these lines in the globe, but it knows that if it's part of the same template it should animate, and if it's not, it should just delete one and draw the next one.
Wow.
So then we can add some text, explain what's going on. And in each thing you can capture, and each template is designed to be able to capture its state. So let's say we want to tell a story with this. We might want to start by saying, look what happened here. And then we might want to duplicate it. Then something interesting happened. Actually, that's the interesting point. They were all drawing, or tying, but then look what eventually happened. And so maybe we want to add a new slide, sort of a bit of text to finish this off. And there's our finished story. And I can do this with the arrow keys, like PowerPoint. And of course you can, so in this case we've got a simple navigation bar at the top with some buttons. We haven't really bothered adding any text. But there's a bunch of other ways to sort of animate between those different views. But the other thing we could do here is, we can publish it. So if we want to publish that, I can click publish and then confirm, and that whole thing is now public on the web. Public.flourish.studio/story/411.
Oh, kind of.
Yeah, there's an issue there. We'll come back to that later. That's just the default embedding style was wrong. But the point is you can construct these things, you can publish them, and then you could edit them and republish them and all that kind of stuff.
And the reason why, and you host them. Is that you host them? And then...
So by default we host them, but already on visualizations and soon on stories you can also download them. So let's say you wanted to grab this one. So this is our horse race, that was the name of the visualization. So we click into that. Here it is. So we could publish that if we wanted on the Flourish server. So there it is, and that's a responsive embed. You can also embed it and grab the embed code, which gives you a responsive embed. Can generate some iframe on the page, but you could also download it as an HTML bundle if you don't want us to host it. And if we look at here,
they won't be able to see that because the window is only the...
okay. But, okay, so I'm opening the zip file that's been downloaded. And in this particular case, it's not putting in any additional files. So if I could just drag that into here, and there's that project. So you could post that yourself. Obviously, other templates that do pull in data files and stuff wouldn't work on a file URL, but this one works fine. So in the future, we'll have an offline player. You'll be able to download stories, save them to your account, use it as a presentation tool offline, all that kind of stuff. But we've got huge amounts of work to do before we get to that point.
Yeah, but this is already so amazing. So it's been a year in the works, is it?
Yeah, I guess we started working on it in March last year.
Yeah.
But at that point it was...
A year and a bit.
Yeah, a year and a bit. So there was about 9 months of doing it with just us two, and then but now the team has grown, and so now we're going at a much faster clip than we were before.
Is anyone visible in the background? But there are other people here.
Our imaginary friends. So that's the idea, and there's lots of other bits of thinking around it, such as, for example, if you're a data viz developer, you should be able to make templates and use this either as a public good, so you make a visualization template and just give it away, in which case we don't charge anyone to use that. So Flourish is free if everything you do is public. So if you're an open source developer, you make a cool template, you stick it in the system, someone else comes along with public data, wants to use it, they put it in, publish it. That's a non-commercial thing. It's a bit like GitHub. It's a kind of, if you're using it publicly, it's free and hopefully useful. But also, if you're a database developer, you could make rather than developing a client, a custom project, you could say, well, that's a bit dead end. Instead, I'll make you a custom template. Because one thing we found is that a lot of customers for data visualization services have the same data structure that they use again and again and again. So it might be a survey company that does the same survey every 3 months.
I see.
And so instead of making them a one-off and then potentially it being reusable, but in practice that never working out that way, or they then want to pay you to make a new version, but you're too busy so they can't have it. Instead you just say, make your template, that can be a private template for that organization, they just pay to have a private account, and then you're giving them something that they can then use as much as they want. So over time, you could build up for a particular customer a suite of private templates that would give them a whole data visualization toolkit custom made for their data, but which they can use inside the organization. So we hope that it will shift a little bit of the kind of the business analytics-y data world away from these monolithic systems like Tableau and towards the more flexible and more powerful, more beautiful data viz JavaScript way of doing things, and in doing so, open up new opportunities for the data viz community.
Wow. that was really brilliant.
Cool.
Thank you so much for. I mean, like, there's so many more things I want to talk to you about, but it's like we've run out of the hour. So maybe some other time I can talk to you offline. I can talk to you about like kind of all the thought processes, because like this is obviously something that you guys have put so much thought into, and it comes from like the years of working with clients, and then just personally, I just started freelancing like last year, and I just started working with clients. So like I was also hoping to just kind of learn from you and like what you've encountered and all of that. But not right now, not here. Thank you so much for letting me crash your office, for letting me kind of stay here and hang out, and then for doing this, and it was super fun. I hope that it was kind of fun for you guys too. And then once we like stop this stream, it'll be online, and I'll archive it so you can have it. But yeah, thank you so much.
If you told me that, I wouldn't have joined in.
Yeah, it's been recorded. Thank you so much to everybody that's joined, and thank you so much for all the questions. And then I'll see you guys next time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I can't find my mouse. Okay.